Hello everyone, and welcome back to another rambling session of James taking you through something to do with Blender and multiple computers and making stuff faster. So today I thought I would do something which has been requested quite a bit. A few people have asked how to set up a render farm with both Windows and Linux, and how do you share files between Windows and Linux. And that's apparently quite hard. So I've been researching like a bit of a nerd on the internet and have found a way to do this. Haven't actually tried it yet. I thought that would be far more entertaining, or perhaps frustrating for you guys to watch me bumble my way through it. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the setup, and then I'm going to basically just go for it. So the aim of today is to be able to get to the point where we've got a good rendering setup with two computers. Not want to do that. Let's do that. Two computers. One will be a Windows, which is the master, which you can see here in the background behind me. And the other one is going to be a Ubuntu PC. They're both connected to the same network. Actually sitting here under my desk. And let's get stuck into this. Okay, so let's have a look at the issue we've got. So I'm going to start a new Blender scene, and I'm going to say so probably about 3 million times throughout this video. Apologies, that's some kind of nervous twitch that my brain does, because I'm still getting used to being on camera and recording shit, and bear with me, we'll get there. Alright, so we've got a new scene, and I'm currently using the Crowdrender add-on. I'll just show you that real quick, just in case you're wondering. I'm always using it in these videos, but what the hey, so I'm using this one. This says 0.26, but spoiler, there's a new version coming out, 0.27, it's going to be coming soon, and this is actually a test version of it. I just haven't made this one number higher yet. Okay, so that's what we're using. Now I'm going to go ahead and connect up another computer, and we're going to set up basically a scene that uses shared assets. And by that I mean textures, I mean caches, I mean other blend files that you've linked or appended by, you go into File, and you go Import, no, not Import, link or append, there they are. So you either link a model or append a model to your scene from another blend file. So anything which is not inside this blend file is what I call an external asset. So at the moment we've got two computers. We've got this one, the master, which is the Windows machine. We've got James Zubuntu, which is an Ubuntu or Zubuntu Linux machine, which I've connected and it's synced, and it's just got this blend file in it. And if I render it, nothing spectacular is really going to happen. I'm going to use cycles. I'm going to make sure adaptive sampling's on so it doesn't take as long, and we're going to render. And you're going to see that it's just a cube. Nothing under here and nothing under here. No tricks, no tricks. Okay, so the problem that you guys would have experienced, or some of you might have experienced, is when you're using not just our software, but other render farm software that doesn't deal with external assets particularly well, and we don't at the moment, you'll get something that looks like this. So I'm going to add a texture to this. So I've gone into my shading view. I'm going to Sorry about that, first gaff. And no editing, that's the rule on these things. I don't edit, I just let it hang where it will. Okay, so I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to add a texture. So I'm just going to add an image texture. This is going to be nothing spectacular, by the way, because I don't have any spectacular images at all. So I'm going to go into my pictures and just pick this, because it's a texture, I guess. And I'm going to connect it up to the base color. And then you can see it's applied something. There's a little brush stroke on there. This is just basically so we have a texture to work with, so I can show you what's going on. Now, if I was to render this straight away using Crowdrender, naively thinking Crowdrender is so awesome and it just solves every problem automatically out the box, and it doesn't. There is some work involved. So I'm going to now just do that so you can, I don't know, get a feel for what happens. So it says ready, which isn't. Yeah, it's another thing I have to fix. Basically means it's ready. It should have said synced, but Oh, rats, I hate it when it does that. Okay, so you probably noticed then that there was this little divide down there. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to I'm actually going to scale this up. So I'm going to go to layout. Sorry, that was another. I'm going to go into camera view. I'm going to scale this thing up so we can't possibly miss it. Damn it, render what I asked you to. Let's try that again. Okay. And I hope this time we'll be able to see where the texture is and where the texture isn't. And there'll be another problem that we also have to fix, which will show up shortly. That's better. It's much better. Now you can obviously see texture here, no texture there. This is the master, which has all the files accessible to it. This is the render node, the Ubuntu machine, which does not have any of the textures or any of the stuff other than the blend file available to it. Now, most of the time when you have a missing texture in a scene, it'll turn up pink. This has a missing material, which is why it's blank. And it has the missing material because when I added that material is not in the scene on the Ubuntu machine yet, because we don't support automatically just adding stuff into the scene on the Ubuntu machine. So I'm going to resync, which is going to re-upload the blend file, which now has the material in it. And so you'd think that would fix it, wouldn't you? You'd think we would be good enough to figure all this out, which we are. We're just getting around to it. More on that later. And there you go. Okay, so this is the pink bits problem that I've been going on about for a little while. And I've been showing you in a previous video how to deal with it when you've got just all Windows machines. Today, we're going to hopefully, fingers crossed, because I haven't done this yet, get this to work with a Windows machine and a Linux machine. Okay, so let's do that. So, because this is obviously not great unless you like really abstract art with, I don't know what the point of it is, but there you go. You can tell I'm not an art buff. And apologies to anyone it is, but abstract art for me is just like, not my cup of tea, I'm afraid. Not my cup of tea. So the first thing we're going to have to do is figure out where are we going to put all of these files. It's really good to have a good structure when you want to set things up. So I am going to choose to share a folder where I'm just going to put all of my external assets like textures. So I am going to go to my desktop, and in here I've got a Blender projects folder, and pretty much everything in here is already shared. So I'll show you what you have to do to share a folder. So first things first, you're going to have to go to your network settings. So I'm just going to right click, open network and internet settings, because if you don't actually set up your computer properly, you can actually think you're sharing a network folder or something, but not. So we're going to go to sharing options. Okay. Turn on network discovery, turn on automatic setup of network connected devices, yes. Turn on file and printer sharing. And this is also for the current profile. You might have a few profiles in here, so you have private, guest or public, and all networks. You want to make sure whatever the current profile is has network discovery on and also file and printer sharing on, because we're sharing a folder from this Windows PC so the Linux one can actually access it. And that's how the Linux machine is going to get the files. Because remember, Crowdrender doesn't actually do that by default. Okay, so all networks. I don't think there's anything here you're going to have to consider for this particular tutorial. In the previous tutorial, we turned off password protected sharing because it just made it easier for us and more convenient, but we're not going to do that this time. I'm going to do it properly, so to speak. Okay, so we're going to go and make sure that this folder is actually shared. So I'm going to go right click it, properties, then go into sharing. And sorry if I'm going quick, but we've got a little bit to get to and I do not want to dilly-dally. So we've got Blender projects is shared. And I'm just going to check that by going share. Okay, everyone has read permission. So by everyone, it means all the users on the Windows PC. We're going to come back to this when we set up the Linux machine in a moment, but you have to have everyone enabled if you want other users other than the currently logged in user to access this. So if you're doing this in an environment where you've got more than one person having an account on the Windows machine, you really want, if you want everyone to have access to those files, choose everyone and give them read permission, or you can give them write permission if you wanted them to put files there as well remotely across the network. But that's not required for this tutorial because all we need to do is let the Linux machine read files from the Windows machine. So read is enough. And you know, I guess some IT admin people will say if read is enough, then read is all you need. Read is all you need. Okay, network path. So this is an important detail here. So this network path here is what we're going to have to enter into the Linux. Oh, sorry, just cracked myself in the desk there. This is the path we're going to have to put into the Linux machine to get it to. Sorry, my camera's just wigged out a bit there. This is the path we're going to have to tell the Linux machine to use so it can actually get access. This is called a UNC path. You can look that up on the net, or actually I might actually put a link to a Wikipedia page in the description below if you want to check it out. It'll just tell you basically what a UNC path is and how it works, but this is the path that you have to use to tell the Linux machine where on the network and also the hard disk of this computer, both which machine and which folder on that machine is where the stuff is. Okay, so this is set up, this is shared. Yep, if this wasn't shared, you could just make changes and then click share. Your folder is shared. Cool. That's probably what you'd see. It's good, but it's okay. So I'm just going to have to remember this. It's Render 3 PC users Render 3 PC desktop Blender projects. I already know that because I've been using this as kind of like the folder I share stuff from by default. So in here though, I am going to actually create just a folder called textures because I want to make this neat. I don't want to, oh gosh, caps lock is on. I don't want to just put files everywhere, so let's make sure we've got textures in there. Now I'm going to have to go to pictures, copy this just random picture I've got, go back into textures and paste it there. Cool beans. Now there's one little trick. Because I've moved that file, Blender doesn't know I've done that. So one complication is if you've set up a project like this and you're now following this tutorial thinking all I have to do is share a folder, yeah, it doesn't really work like that. What we do have to do now is to go back into shading, pick the cube, ponder about where the heck the shader's gone. That is a bit of a puzzle actually. Where's the shader gone? Material. It is here, but it's not showing up in the view. Welcome to another James bumbling through Blender, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Okay, shading. I suppose we should say use nodes, but I was using nodes just a moment ago. No, this is the compositing view. Why have I got a compositing view? Surely I want a shader editor. What? Okay, look. I'm happy to say probably my fault, but I could have sworn that was a shader editor a little while ago and then it changed to a compositor, which kind of looks very similar. Like, the layout of the menu and stuff is similar. So I was, except for that's in a different spot. Okay, maybe it doesn't look anything like it. Never mind. What we have to do to make sure that the Linux machine gets the file is we need to tell Blender, no, don't look in here. Users pictures is not shared, so it's not going to be able to find it. So instead, what we're going to do is go to the desktop, Blender projects, textures, and I'm going to tell it to use that file. Okay, close that. And I'm just going to do a quick F12 render just to make sure. Yes. Okay, yeah, it's there. I can see the little brush stroke, so we can just cancel that. So now we know the local machine can still use it. Now the remote one can't. Now we've got to fix the remote one. So I'm going to change the screen now over to the Ubuntu machine, and we're going to set up what we have to do over there, because we've got to do a little bit more work. Nothing comes for free, lads. Nothing comes for free. I don't know why I'm doing the accents. It's quite weird. Okay, so now we're looking at the Ubuntu machine. So I am going to now just bring up a guide I was looking through. So yeah, look, I'm going to be humble here. I had to look this up because I don't usually do Linux sysadmin stuff. So I'm going to just trust in the internet here, and I'm going to do all of what this guide says, and we're going to see if it works. So the idea behind this is we're going to use a util called kifs or sifs, and going to use that to basically mount a shared drive. So in Windows, when you want to access a shared folder from another Windows machine, you don't have to mount a drive necessarily. You can map a drive, or you can literally just use that UNC path I was talking about to just put it into a file browser, and it will just take you straight to the shared folder. You may be asked to log in first, but once you do that, if you click remember my credentials, it should remember from every point thereon that you actually authorized to grab files off that other computer, and you can literally just look at it like it was a folder on your hard drive, even though it's sitting on a different computer. With Linux, though, you've got to mount a volume, so we're going to do that. So first things first, we are going to see if we've got CIFS installed. So if you're a Linux user, you'll be used to this. I don't really have to list installed grep. I'm just looking to see if I've already got this, because I don't want to have to install it if I don't already have it. Sorry, I don't want to install it if I already have it. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's in there, so I'm just going to go ahead and install this. I'm on Ubuntu, so I'm using the apt thingy, which is the package manager for Debian Ubuntu. You might use Pacman, or I think, yeah, it's Pacman on Arch. I'm not sure what it is on the other distributions though. Okay, so let's do that. So I have to install this first before I can actually use it, because CIFS utils is the thing we use to actually mount the drive. So the first thing we do is just see if we can mount the drive and look at that texture in the file browser, because if we've got that file, we know that we've got access. Then the real fun begins after that point. Okay, so it looks like it's there. So if I go to... Is that there? No. Oh dear, okay. Well, what do we do now? Sudo mount .gifs. Okay, so it's used that way. That's why. I thought I was just gonna, I thought this created another command, but it doesn't. So I'm gonna sudo, whoops, I'm in the wrong window. So I'm gonna make a directory on this computer, make dir, it's got mnt share, but I'm gonna, what do I want to call it? Oh, I hate having named things. You know what? I'm just going to name it the same thing, but I'm going to call it textures. How'd you like that? Now we're going to do the mount thing. So we're going to mount GIFs, which we just installed, and now we need the UNC path from before. So I'm just going to temporarily switch back to the other window. Actually, I don't need to do that, do I? I can just look at it on here. So we had this shared file, shared folder, sorry. So now what I can do is I can just go up one level and I can right click on, so I'm just going to move it a little bit, go to properties, and I can actually read what I need to read out of here. So here is the path. So that's Render 3 PC users, Render 3 PC desktop Blender projects, textures. Okay. So let's do that. So we're going to do // whoops, I want to put text, caps lock on, Render 3 PC users, oh gosh. Some days I regret not allowing myself to edit things, but it does speed things up. Desktop, Blender projects. Ooh, should this be in? This would probably be enclosed in a string. Yeah, let's enclose it in quotation marks. Purely because there's a space between Blender and projects. Any of you used command line before will know that space is usually meant to break up arguments into, well, break up a line of text into different arguments, options, or commands. So normally you don't want to have spaces if that is meant to be one whole thing, and it is. It's one whole thing being the path to where the textures are. But because I put a space in the file name, or the directory name, I have to make sure that I make it a string so that it doesn't get broken up into 2 bits and fed to this program, which will then go. That doesn't make any sense because I don't have a projects command or option. So yeah, you can save yourself lots of, did I call it textures? Yes, I did. Save yourself lots of grief for that. Okay, and then we're going to tell it where we did this to. So Mount textures. Okie dokes. So with any luck, actually there's a bit more to this command. So I've done the first bit, which is, that's the UNC path, that's the local path on this Linux machine. And now we have to tell it what user account. So I am going to, oh gosh, I'm in the wrong window. So now I have to authenticate this computer using a user account, otherwise the Windows machine will not let Linux in, basically. User equals account. No, it doesn't. It equals, right? It equals render 3 PC. Okie dokies. Oh, god damn it. My boot. Sorry, my bad, typo. Now, I'm assuming once I type this in, it's going to ask for my password because it hasn't. Yep, okay, cool. So now I just have to put in my password. Okay, so now if that's worked, we should be able to now go over to our file system. And we should be able, if I just type in mount, whoops, mount, textures. Oh, this is so cool. Ah, there it is. Sorry, I can barely contain my excitement about small things. Small things, small minds. But that's okay. So now we know that this Linux machine can access the texture, but we're not quite there yet. So I'll show you, actually I'll prove it to you, we're not quite there yet. I am going to just do exactly the same render. Because you might think, we're there! No, not yet. The reason we're not there is the peculiarities of our system, which I will now explain, and hopefully we can fix this. So even though, yes, it can access the texture fine, Blender still can't find it. Now the reason Blender still can't find it is because if I go back into Blender, actually I'm just going to bring it up on the big screen in front of me so I can see it a bit better because I'm starting to squint. So the reason Blender can't find it is because if you remember, go back into shading. So if I look at the path here, C uses render 3 PC desktop Blender project texture, that thing. Okay, so it is using excuse me a second. So we're using what's called an absolute path, which means it's referring to the hard drive on the Windows PC and it's referring to that particular path. Now, this isn't going to work on Linux. If I try and, let's just try it, see what happens. So if I go back to the Linux machine now and type this path in, which is pretty much the equivalent of what Blender's going to do on that Linux machine when it's rendering, it's going to try and use this path to get that texture. Well, let's just do a demonstration. Let's just see what happens. Because I haven't done that yet. Like, the whole point of these tutorials is for you to watch me. That sounds so narcissistic. The whole point of this is it's all about me, guys. Now, the whole point is it's already told me, no, I don't like it. The whole point of it is basically to show you guys how I can make this work, bumbling my way through things, which should give you guys some confidence. And you get to see all the mistakes, which is really important because I think it's always mistakes which teach you more than just some guy giving you the steps. Because sometimes the steps don't work and then you just buggered. Okay, so let's just go for broke. I'm going to type the whole path in. It's Blender, projects, texture, no, textures with a low, and it just goes, nah. So I'm hitting the enter key and it's just like, what the hell are you talking about, James? So we've got a bit of an issue. So if I go back to the blend file now, we've got to have our thinking caps on. Have those thinking caps on, lads. What we're going to do. Because we've got to figure out how do we now refer to a path which both machines can access that's the same on both machines. See, this is the tricky bit because I could try putting the UNC path in here and that would work. But remember, the UNC path won't work on Linux. So let's give that a shot. If I now go and just copy the UNC path in, because this is what I did in the last tutorial, so you could be forgiven for thinking that if I did this, use the UNC path, open image, grab that. So now I've remapped where Blender thinks this is using the UNC path. So if I open this now, you can see it's now using that path. So let's see what happens. If I F12 now, does it still work? On the local machine, yes, it still works. If I do a Crowdrender render though, you'll see it is still quite broken. The point is, the UNC path, even though I put it into that command to mount the drive, Blender doesn't do that. See? It doesn't do it. It doesn't mount drives and figure stuff out for you. All it's going to do, which I will now replicate for you, is it's just going to give it to the OS. It's going to take that path, give it to the Linux operating system, the UNC path, and say, gimme, gimme. And we're about to see exactly what would happen if we tried to do that. So I'm back now on the Linux machine, and I'm going to go and type in, so render 3, PC, OC, OCDC PC, oh my gosh, ACDC, Thunderstruck. Sorry, trying to get back on track here. User, render 3, PC, users, not user, you idiot. Imagine if this works, I'd look so stupid. Meh. If it helps you guys out, I'm okay with that. Blender projects. I'm actually wondering now if it is, but the thing is Blender can't do it, so it really doesn't matter if the Linux operating system can. Blender does not. No slur on Blender at all. I mean, that's just not something they've decided to support. It's not like it should and it's broken. It's just not there. Textures. So I'm hitting enter now and it's just going, what are you talking about, Willis? Actually, I just want to make sure that that's the case. Okay. Oh, you're kidding me, it didn't. Render 3, PC, users, render 3, PC, desktop, Blender projects is actually the folder that's shared, so I don't have to type anymore now. I'm hitting the enter key and nothing is happening. So it looks like both Linux and Blender do not know what a UNC path is, can't translate it. So we're going to have to figure out something else. So the something else is, and again, I have not ever tested this, but this is my attempt to fix this, right? Because I've actually given someone in our forum this advice, so it didn't seem fair for me to not actually try it myself. Just probably should have tried it before I gave them that advice, that's all. Okay, so we can get rid of the render result, and we will go back to, see now it's come back to, oh, I get it. Okay, so I was confused a little early in the video because when I came back to look at the shading view, it had changed to the compositor without telling me. It seems that when you render from the shading view, when you come back, it turns it into a compositor, which is bizarre because that's not what I was expecting, but whatever. Whatever. So we want this file. Now the question is, how do we get that file using the same path between different operating systems? That gonna be the one. Okay, so one way we could do this, we're gonna have to save this blend file somewhere. So first step, let's save it actually in the shared folder. So if I go to, because we're going to use something called relative paths. So it's really important that the path that where the blend file is actually really close to where the textures are. So I'm going to go into Blender projects. I'm just going to stick it here. So I'm going to call this, what can I call this? James, hopefully not embarrassing himself, .blend. James's mad tests. There we go. Okay, so now we have a structure where we've got the blend file and the textures folder right next to it. So this whole thing is shared, but really we could have just shared textures. We didn't need to share this entire directory, but I've just stuck it in here to save time. So now what we're going to do is we're going to remap this file again, but we're going to have to use relative files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go relative path, detect sequences, detect UDIMs, and then we're just going to go open this thing again. So open image. Now I think that's probably done it. It's kind of hard to tell. One more time, projects, textures, launch. Relative path. So what relative path does is it only saves the path relative from the blend file. So what that means is rather than going C users render 3 PC desktop Blender projects textures launch.tiff, it just goes textures launch.tiff because it doesn't need to tell the operating system you need to start from the hard drive. It says no, just start from where the blend file is, go into the textures folder, and then you'll find the launch thing. It's just like directions. Rather than telling someone to start from, you know, the center of your city and then walk all the way to your house, if they live next door to you, you just say, well, start at your house, go next door. It's going to get them there because the instructions are equally valid. It's just they're a lot shorter. But we can use this to our advantage, I hope. I say I hope because, like I said, I haven't done it before. I'm just trying stuff. Okay, so now we've got that done. We need to obviously resync. So now the file has been resynchronized. That change in the path is now being used on Linux machine, but we're still not there because at the moment, where that file is on the Linux machine, there is actually no textures folder there at the moment. So what we're going to have to do is do something a little bit sneaky using what we call symbolic links. And sorry if this is a really long-winded workaround, but it is a workaround that hopefully is going to get stuff working between Windows and Linux or even Mac operating systems. So you can have a render farm made up of whatever you can get your hands on, rather than having to have everything of the same particular type. It is a little bit more involved though, as you've currently noticed, because we're up to about half an hour. Less. I'm not going to edit though, am I? Okay, so I'm going to try and stop waffling and get on with it. Okay, so at the moment we know that we have mount, textures, launch.tiff. So we've got the file here. The question is, where is the blend file now? Because if we can find the blend file, we can actually stick a textures folder there, which is linked from this directory, because we can't use this directory. Because if I was to change it to, if I was to go back to my master and change it to mount/textures, then I've broken it on the master, and now the master won't render. Which, if you're okay with, that's fine. If you've got like 30 computers and you don't need to render on the master, that might work for you. But if you've only got 2 and you want to use both of them, then you can't just stick one path that will work into Blender and it work for both of them. We've actually got to use the relative paths. It's so much simpler when you have one OS. If you go back and watch the other video, there'll be a card up around here about now for that. You'll see that if you're just using Windows, yeah, easy. And same if you're just using Unix, easy. I think Unix covers both Mac and Linux, even though they're not strictly Linux. Sorry, not strictly Unix. But they use a similar enough file system that I don't think you'd get this kind of issue. Okay, so what are we going to do? We need to make a link between where this textures folder is and where the blend file copy is. So there's a copy of the blend file sitting on this Linux machine somewhere for that project. We've got to go find it. How the heck do we find it? That's actually not too bad. So you go to your user folder. In my case, it's home jams. And it's in the Crowdrender folder, or CR folder for short. It's in the server folder. And if we've just opened this project, so if I filter by date and time, although there's 2 of them, that's a bit annoying. It's one or the other. So one of these Date modified today. Can you be a bit more specific there, Linux? Date modified today is, well, I suppose you are ordering them. Is that in order of time? Let's go up one. Today, all right. I'm going to say it's the one that's at the top and hope I get lucky. So in here is that copy of the blend file. And you can actually open this up and you'd see that is the same file. So what we need to do is we need to make a symbolic link between this folder, and I'm going to open a new file system folder, file manager. And if we go to the file system, mount textures. So once we link this folder to here, then we should be okay and we can give this a test. So the way that we do that is with a command utility called link. Oh dear, my throat is suddenly starting to close. Sorry about that. Have a little sip of water. No, that didn't help. Ugh, apologies. So link, ln, I believe it is. So I'm actually going to just check out the manual page for link. Yep, that be the one. Symbolic link. So we've got the target and the directory. So the target is... Oh gosh, sorry guys, it's been a while since I used this. I think I need to use S for symbolic. Yes, that's minus S for symbolic. Target directory specifies the directory in which to create the links. So that's the target. And then directory is target directory. So this is where I want you to create the links, and that is the link, I guess. I guess we'll find out. Only one way to find out. Okay, so let's Q for quit. I'm going to go link minus S. I want this to be in. So I'm going to give it the full path to home. Actually, I'm going to copy this because it's a hell of a lot easier to copy this path than to type that all out. So this is where I want you to create it, and I want you to textures, and I want you to take this guy. So I think what I'm saying there is make a symbolic link in this location, being here, from here. So let's get that away. Permission denied. Ah, okay, so maybe we have to do sudo. Yeah, okay, let's try sudo for super user do. Operation not supported. Failed to create symbolic link. Operation not supported. Can I not symbolically link a... Alright, new plan. It might be that symbolic links can't work with shared volumes, which isn't exactly fatal, but it's freaking annoying. And it was at that moment that James knew he'd screwed up, or rather I knew once I'd reviewed this footage. So it turns out you can actually use a symbolic link exactly how I was about to do it, or how I just tried to do it. I just got the directory and target the wrong way around. So if you do it like this, then you can actually get it to work. You just need to make sure that the target is where you're linking to, and the directory is where you want the link to turn up. And once you do it like that, then it works just as well. Anyway, back to old me to take you through the other way of doing it, which is also good to know about. Annoying. So why don't we instead... why don't we instead do this? So rather than mounting the shared drive, I mean, this is going to make it a tad more inconvenient for you guys, but it is literally just one command which potentially you could script. And we might do this automatically for you in the future as well, given that it's not exactly something that's intuitive or easy. I'm sure many people would like it if we just did that. So if I want to make a directory. I haven't made that directory yet, so let's make a directory, and we'll call it this. So obviously we have to make a directory which we mount the thing to. Now I'm hoping that it'll actually let me mount something inside. So I'm just going to call it textures, because remember this path has to be pretty much exactly the same. Okay, there it is. Okay, so we've got that now. We need to mount this sucker. Mount. And we're going to mount it in. So I'm telling it to mount a shared volume inside that. So that's going to hopefully put the texture straight inside that folder, which probably will look a bit better and neater when you actually go and look inside this folder. Password. That's the password of the Windows computer again, because I'm authenticating this computer to see it. Okay. Fingers crossed. I'm about to go and check. Oh, there it is. Ah, back at you, Linux. Don't deny me linking things around the operating system. I can get around your wayward ways. Okay. Let's not dilly-dally. Time's getting on. So I'm just going to switch back to Windows. Isn't this fun? Do you not like this? Succeeding, I mean. Not generally mucking around with Linux, but, you know, actually having things worked. Mind you, I may have just really set myself up to fall on my face, having said that. All right, well, there's only one way to find out. That's just a render. Here goes. I have to admit, I'm getting a bit nervous now. Ah. Okay, then. Looks like egg on my face it is, but not to worry. The whole point of this is we've got to figure out what went wrong. So, there is a feature here which allows us to see what happened. What did that little render process tell us was going on when it started to render? Because I'm guessing it would have said, I couldn't find that texture file, by the way. No, actually it seems perfectly happy. Let's just tab down. Let's just go through this a little bit. Yeah, it doesn't seem too fussed. Okay, let's just go for warning. There are no warnings at all. That's peculiar. Pretty sure it would have said, hey, I'm missing a texture or something, but it doesn't seem to have complained about it at all. Okay, so we've got to now think, why can it still not find it? Because we've given it access, and look at this, that's what happens. It goes back into the compositing view. I suppose it's thinking you've rendered, now you probably want to composite, which, nice guess. Not exactly what I want to be doing right now. Okay, what's this launch? TIFF 002. That's interesting, because that's not what it's called. Why is it calling it 002? I guess maybe that's its name, not its actual file path, right? If we go in here. Excuse me. No, I don't know if this is significant, because we do have... I wonder, can we just unlink it? Okay, so let's just start again. Open this thing. It's a relative path. We go to desktop, Blender projects. That's where this file is currently saved. So if I check up here, users, Rend3 PC, desktop, Blender projects, that's where I am. So I'm now next to my own blend file. I choose textures and launch relative path, open image. Give it a quick F12 run to make sure that the file is actually linked from that location, and then we will save the blend file and resynchronize it so that the other Linux machine has that change. Okie dokes, that looks fine. Yeah, texture's in there. Resynchronize. Okay, it said uploading for a fraction of a second there, so alright, let's try again. Just make sure that it has a relative file path. Oh my goodness. There it is. So it may have just meant that it wasn't actually resynchronized properly. So just to recap, we went back. Compositor. Change back to the shader editor. So I actually deleted the reference to the texture altogether and reopened it, made sure it was relative path, as you saw. Very important. If this is not set to relative path, then failure is imminent, pretty much, using this method. But that is pretty much awesome. Excuse me. So if we go back and have a look at the Linux machine, I mean, this pretty much concludes now. Y'all can just tune out if you've had enough, because that's the method. Or review it if you want. You can go back and watch it again, piece it together. Because, yeah, sorry, it was a bit janky this time. So what we've got is pretty much an exact copy of the project. I'm going to call it a project, which means we've got a blend file. Next to it is a textures folder. That textures folder is mounted as a shared volume, which is located on the Windows machine. So this kind of like mimics the exact same setup we've got on the Windows PC. So I'm just going to switch back. Oh gosh, I hope I'm not thick. Sorry guys, I don't mean to be coughing. Even though it's not spreading through the internet, it's still probably unpleasant to listen to. So back here we've got, here's the project here, the blend file and a textures folder. And then that's exactly the same setup. So what we've done is basically replicated our project pattern or project structure. And we've made sure that any external assets, be they textures, be they caches, particle caches, simulation caches, big long list of aches and aisles and all the rest of it, that's exactly replicated on the Ubuntu machine. And by the magic of using the KIFS or SIFS utility, we mounted a shared folder, that shared folder being this entire project folder, and then was able, using relative links, to get Crowdrender to be able to render, or get Blender to render everything with all of the textures actually showing up. And that's cross OS, so we've got a Windows PC and a Linux PC, which use very different file path formats and very different ways of actually accessing shared volumes of other computers. So I hope that's been useful. I think we can pretty much leave it there because that's a success. Hooray! And please drop lots of comments below about what you want us to do next. Like I said, there's going to be some more videos coming out because we've got a new version on the way. So I want to demonstrate that. But we've gone too long today for me to do that, and I don't want to just keep rabbiting on. Also, if you want to help support us in doing these videos and building our render farm software, there will be a link in the description below for you to go and check out our development fund, because similar to Blender, we have a development fund where you can help us keep doing this. And that would be very much appreciated. This project lives and breathes off of the generosity of people who use our software and enjoy our videos, who decide to give back. And we would really like that you do that and hope you keep doing it, even though I know a lot of you guys, obviously, look, we're in uncertain times, and I don't want to rabbit on too much about it. You know what I mean by uncertain times. But most of our supporters have kept supporting even through the madness that's been 2020, which is halfway there. So big respect to y'all. We're halfway through 2020, the train wreck of a year that it's been. And I say that, you know, with all due respect to everyone who's doing it tough out there. I mean, obviously down here in Australia, we had drought, then we had bushfires, and we thought that was the end of it, and then coronavirus came. But I know everyone out there is doing it equally tough. So I'm going to end it here and just say I hope you're all well. If you want to support us, there's links in the description below. If you're struggling, get in touch. We're human, just like you guys. This is not a big corporate outfit. I mean, I'm in my bedroom doing this. I stream from my bedroom, I code from my bedroom, and somehow hope that things will just turn out. I'm an optimist in that regard. Anyway, guys, I hope you're all going to have a fantastic rest of the week, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, cheers.